I'm not saying Boston is the most racist place in the United States. Obviously there's like Alabama, but it's not for lack of trying. Alright, welcome to Tate's Take. If you're new here, I do movie and TV reviews. Give you a little background, basically let you know if I think it's worth checking out or not. If that's something you're into, hit that subscribe button for your boy. For my regular Tate's Takers, let's see what the verdict is on this one. Get it? Because it's like about a trial? Ugh, never mind. Quick background here. Trial 4 is a new Netflix documentary series by French filmmaker Remy Burkell. He's done a few other docs like Sin City Law, which is about the Las Vegas legal system. Okay. And Oil for Fraud, which is about Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Here in Trial 4, he tells the story of the famous Boston case of Sean Ellis. Okay, so let me give you the rundown on this case. Plot time? Cool. This all started with slavery. No, I'm just kidding. This story starts in September of 1993, where a detective with the Boston PD named John Mulligan was murdered while he was working on police detail in front of a Walgreens at like 3 a.m. Mind you, he was literally asleep when it happened. Yeah, like at work. It's important to note that Mulligan wasn't the most well-liked cop in Boston. He was known for making an insane amount of arrests, and he had the most civilian complaints in the whole department. I mean, we know those don't do anything, but anyway. So boom, you already know the suspect list could be crazy long, because it could be anyone who he ever arrested that wants revenge. Also, you find out that Mulligan, who was in a relationship and had 2 kids, was a little bit of a playboy. He was even known to have some of his mistresses come join him in the car while he was doing these details. So yes, not only was he sleeping at work, but he was also sleeping at work. Ugh, that's gross. So cool. Not only do we have a long list of people that Mulligan ever arrested, now we also got a possibility of a jealous lover. These are clues. A lot of y'all are probably like, Tate, so was this Sean Ellis kid one of the dudes that Mulligan arrested? No. No, he wasn't. Okay, well, was Mulligan sleeping with his girl or something? Afraid not. Here's how Sean gets in the mix. 3 days after Detective Mulligan gets killed at that Walgreens, Sean's 2 female cousins were also murdered. Sean was super close with his cousins. They actually all lived together. And that's how Sean found out, because he was just heading home one day and saw the police there. So anyway, now the police bring Sean in for questioning in regards to his cousin's murders, because of course, they think he killed his own cousins. Now, is it impossible for someone to kill their own cousins? No, of course not. The problem is, when he's in with the cops trying to explain that he didn't kill his own cousins, all of a sudden the cop just says, so what about Detective Mulligan? Huh? Like, huh? So of course Sean is like, what the hell? I don't know anything about that. I was at the Walgreens that night getting Pampers. I got the receipt. You can check it. Let's pause for a second. Right now we have Sean, who by the way is 19 years old, being accused of killing his own flesh and blood, and after denying that, is accused of killing a cop that he doesn't even know. Let's think about it for a second. If Sean killed this cop, would he be admitting to the police that he was at the Walgreens that night? No. No, he wouldn't. Oh, and for those of you who may be wondering, it was actually Sean's cousin's ex-boyfriend who admitted to killing both women. Over a gold chain. Fast forward and the Boston police immediately release Sean Ellis and issue an apology for the misunderstanding. No. That didn't happen.
My name is Sean Ellis, and I was wrongfully convicted of murder at 19. Now I'm facing my 4th trial and the possibility of going back to prison for life.
Yeah. Sean Ellis, at 19 years old, went to prison for 22 years for a crime he insists he didn't commit.
The sense we got was Mulligan's past had caught up with him. And when a black kid got arrested, it's like, where'd that come from?
Let's rewind real quick. September 1993, Detective Mulligan gets killed in front of this Walgreens while getting paid to sleep in his car. Cool. October 1993, Sean Ellis gets arrested and charged with murdering Detective Mulligan, a cop with endless enemies that Sean didn't even know. They claim that Sean and his friend wanted to steal his gun while he slept. Okay, again, Sean is 19 years old with no criminal record, but somehow now he's a cop killer. This is good police work. He goes through 2 trials that both end in mistrials because the jury has no idea what to do. Now it's time for his 3rd trial. It's September of 1995. Sean's already been sitting in jail for 2 years. This jury finds him guilty of robbery and first-degree murder and sends him to prison for life without the chance of parole. Okay, y'all still with me? This is important. So, 5 months after Sean Ellis was convicted, the Boston Globe opens up an investigation on 3 of the cops that were involved in Sean Ellis's case. Come to find out, these dudes were literally robbing drug dealers. They were seizing cash and seizing drugs and keeping the cash and keeping the drugs. These are cops. These are cops. These cops plead guilty in 1998 and go to jail. Fast forward, and the city of Boston immediately releases Sean Ellis and apologizes for letting corrupt cops work on his case. No, of course not. While Sean's lawyers were working on getting Sean a 4th trial with the new information, Boston just kept saying, just because these dirty cops were stealing drugs and money from bad guys, doesn't mean that Sean didn't kill Detective Mulligan. Okay.
The cops were just looking for someone to pin this murder on.
Ellis was convicted by the work of corrupt police detectives.
Let me just rewind. This is the last time, I promise. Let me just rewind one more time. September 1993, Detective Mulligan is killed in front of this Walgreens. He's asleep at work. October 1993, Sean Ellis gets arrested. September 1995, Sean Ellis is sentenced to life in prison. March 1998, these cops plead guilty and go to jail. March 2015, a judge finally agrees to release Sean Ellis on bail because of the new information. The documentary then shifts his focus to the broken system that swallowed up Sean Ellis as he awaits trial 4. So what's my take? This is one of the best documentaries I've ever seen in my entire life. It's horrible that it even happened to this dude, but it's good to see people taking time to make projects like this. Let me just break down some of the things I liked about it. First of all, the way they tell the story. They kind of bounce around like I just did, but it's still super easy to understand, even though it's not the most linear storytelling. Second, they made sure to include both sides of the argument, so you get to hear from actual members of the Boston PD that are around at that time. Imagine that, a documentary that relies on the facts and lets you hear both sides of the story. What a concept. Yeah, Dan Reed, I said it. They also do a good job of diving into the history of the systemic racism in Boston. It's no surprise that Boston would have a police force that acted this way, especially in the 80s and 90s, but the documentary does a good job of giving us the history of just why it is the way it is. For example, the documentary tells the story of the Chuck Stewart case in Boston in 1989. Long story short, this white dude calls the cops after him and his wife are shot in an alleged carjacking. His wife dies from the bullets, but he's okay. Oh, and she was pregnant. All right. So he tells the police a black male started shooting us trying to steal our car. Naturally, the Boston PD goes on a literal black manhunt and uses stop and frisk to harass damn near every black male they see. Come to find out, Chuck's brother tells the police it wasn't a black male. Chuck killed his own pregnant wife to get insurance money. Fast forward, and the Boston police issue a glowing apology to all the black men they harassed, and Chuck goes to jail for murder. No, of course not. Chuck Stewart jumps off a bridge and kills himself as soon as his brother snitches on him. So that's pretty much how Boston was giving it up in the 80s. Today, Boston has made strides, of course, but it's still seen as a racist city. In fact, it was even voted as a major city that was the most unfavorable to black people in a 2017 study.
So one study we found showed that the median net worth of white families in Boston was $247,500. Compare that to the median net worth of black families in Boston, which was $8.
Like counting in thousands, like $8,000?
No, just $8.
What? Like, Netflix is $9. What's worse than that is somehow 65% of the prison population in Boston is black and brown people, yet they only make up 18% of the population. Like, make it make sense. When I was watching this doc, I couldn't help but compare it to the Central Park 5 story. There's a lot of similarities, but when you watch this documentary, you'll see there's some stark differences. But for both cases, one of the biggest things that frustrates me the most is how slow our justice system works. Like, literally, I could be in jail right now because the cop said I killed someone. A year later, the real killer comes forward. I could still be sitting in jail for another year. What else works like that? Imagine your mom grounds you for hitting your sister. Then your sister comes forward and says she made the whole thing up, but you got to stay grounded for a whole year while your mom does the paperwork. You see how crazy it sounds? I know in 2020, black people have had a systemic racism overload, and this doc may add to that trauma. Personally, I think it's worth the watch, but I totally understand if it's too much for you right now. I'm gonna give Trial 4 5 stars. Like, I don't know. This is it. This is it, Chief. I know when I was first looking it up, I saw that it was 8 episodes of an hour each, and I was like, what the hell? My attention span is not the best. But after I watched the first episode, I knew why they had to be 8 episodes. And when I got to the end, I low-key needed more. You go through so many emotions when you watch this documentary. Like, you might cry. I mean, I didn't cry, but like, you know. Anyway, one of those emotions is anger. Anger at the story, anger at the system, anger at the lack of accountability. But what you don't see is Sean Ellis displaying that anger. He's just a pure, genuine dude that shows a patience and a grace most of us could never understand. They ask him if the situation makes him angry. He says no. He's just angry that there's other people right now sitting in jail for crimes that they didn't commit. In the documentary, as Sean's awaiting his 4th trial, he spends a lot of time working with the New England Innocence Project. The Innocence Project is an organization that helps fight for criminal justice reform and the exoneration of wrongfully convicted individuals. The rate of wrongful convictions in the United States is estimated to be around 2 to 10%. That might sound kind of low, but with the amount of people that are currently incarcerated, that could add up to over 230,000 innocent people locked up right now. I have a link in the description that tells you how to get involved if you want to help out. Trial 4 comes exclusively to Netflix on November 11th, and a huge shout out to Netflix for letting me check this out early. As always, thanks for checking out Tate's Take. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like and that subscribe button. In the comments, let me know if you plan on checking this out, or if 2020 has already been too much for you. Thanks for the time, yo. Peace.